There is a pattern that runs through the book Traction by Gabriel Weinberg and Justin Mares, and most readers miss it because it is hiding inside the book's most famous feature. The pattern is this. Over and over, the founders Weinberg interviewed told him that the channel which actually built their company was a channel they had previously written off. A direct sales founder whose pipeline turned out to come from a podcast. A consumer app team whose breakthrough was paid search, which the team had dismissed as not their style. An enterprise software founder whose growth curve only bent upward after he reluctantly began speaking at conferences he had spent 2 years refusing to attend. The chapter list of Traction makes the book look like a manual on 19 marketing channels. It is not. It is a book about a specific kind of founder blindness, and the channels are the cure. This is the founder's bookshelf. 1 book a week, 1 sharp take, no fluff. If that sounds like your kind of channel, the subscribe button is your friend. Traction was published in 2014, originally self-published by the authors and then picked up by Portfolio for a wider release the following year. Gabriel Weinberg is the founder of DuckDuckGo, a search engine he started in 2008 that grew, slowly and stubbornly, into one of the few credible alternatives to Google. Justin Mares is a marketer and serial founder who came to the book from the practical side of growth. The book arrived in a particular moment. Lean Startup by Eric Ries had been published 3 years earlier, and the startup world had absorbed its central message. Build the minimum viable product, ship fast, iterate based on customer feedback. Around the same time, Sean Ellis had coined the phrase growth hacking in a 2010 blog post, and the term had metastasized into an industry. There were growth hacking conferences, growth hacking job titles, growth hacking books, all promising clever asymmetric tricks for getting users. Into that landscape, Weinberg and Mares published a quieter and stranger book. Traction did not promise tricks. It did not celebrate the viral hack of the month. It did something more methodical, and in retrospect, more useful. It interviewed founders across dozens of categories and tried to extract the underlying structure of how startups actually find their early customers. What the book found was not a hack. What the book found was a list. 19 specific channels through which a startup can plausibly acquire users, organized into a framework for choosing between them. Search engine optimization, content marketing, email marketing, targeted blog placements, engineering as marketing, viral loops, business development, direct sales, affiliate programs, trade shows, speaking engagements, community building, and so on. On the surface, this looks like a marketing textbook. There are sections of the book that read that way, walking through each channel with examples, metrics, and tactical advice. But the book that real operators remember a decade later is not the tactical playbook. What people remember is the Bullseye Framework and the underlying claim that founders are systematically wrong about which channels will work for their business. Weinberg and Mares spent 200 pages building a methodology for the most counterintuitive activity a builder ever undertakes, which is choosing how to distribute the thing they have built. And here is the argument of this video, the thesis the rest of the script will defend. Traction is not a book about 19 channels. It is a forcing function against founder bias. And the channels that have collapsed in the decade since 2014 do not invalidate the book. They prove its method. The framework everyone remembers from Traction is called the Bullseye. It is a 3-ring target. The outer ring is what Weinberg calls the brainstorm. You sit down and you consider all 19 channels. You do not skip any. You do not pre-filter. You do not say, we are an enterprise software company, so trade shows are not for us. You consider each channel and you write down what a realistic, well-executed version of that channel would look like for your business. The middle ring is the probable. You take the brainstorm and you narrow it to 3 or 4 channels that seem most likely to work, given what you know about your product and your customer. The inner ring, the bullseye itself, is the channel that does work. You run small tests in the middle ring. You find the channel that produces real traction with the lowest cost per acquisition, and you pour your resources into that channel until it stops scaling. Then, and only then, you go back to the outer ring and run the exercise again. This is the framework that gets reproduced on 1,000 startup blogs and 100 business school case studies. It is clean, it is memorable. It is the kind of framework you can sketch on a napkin in an investor meeting and have people nod. Most summaries of Traction stop here. They explain the bullseye, they list the 19 channels, they tell you to test cheap and scale fast, and they call it done. But notice what this summary leaves out. It leaves out the question of why the framework exists at all. Because if founders were already good at picking the right channel, the bullseye would be useless. You would not need a 3-ring structure. You would not need an outer ring at all. You would just pick the right channel and start. The framework exists because founders are not good at this. The framework exists because founders, left to their own instincts, will systematically eliminate most of the 19 channels before they have any evidence one way or another. A consumer app founder, asked which of the 19 channels she should test, will quietly cross off sales and business development because those feel like things enterprise companies do. A business-to-business software founder will cross off social ads and viral marketing because those feel like things consumer companies do. A technical founder will cross off speaking engagements and offline events because those feel like activities for people who are not real builders. Every founder does this. The book's central methodological insight is that this elimination is almost always wrong. The outer ring of the bullseye is not an analytical exercise. It is a debiasing exercise. Its purpose is to force you to consider, seriously and concretely, the channels you have already dismissed. The reason you brainstorm all 19 is not because you will test all 19. The reason is to neutralize the founder's instinctive shortlist before that shortlist hardens into the only thing you ever try. Which means the framework is not really a framework. It is a procedure. And the procedure has a target. The target is your own bias. And this brings us to the part of the book that most readers skim, which is, ironically, the part before the channels even begin. In the introduction and the first chapter, before Weinberg gets to the bullseye, he makes a claim that almost every reader nods at and then immediately ignores. The claim is what he calls the 50% rule. From the first day a founder starts working on a company, that founder should be spending 50% of their time on product and 50% of their time on traction. Not 90 on product, 10 on traction, not 70-30, half and half. Read that again and notice how radical it actually is. Weinberg is not saying that traction matters. Everyone agrees that traction matters. Weinberg is saying that traction work is a parallel activity to product work from day one, not a downstream activity that begins after the product is finished. This is the part of the book where most readers, especially technical founders, quietly disagree without saying so. They read the sentence, they think, sure, distribution is important, and then they go back to coding, with the unstated belief that you cannot really work on traction until you have something to distribute. They will start the traction work after the beta, after the launch, after the seed round. The book is making a stronger claim than that, and it is the stronger claim that matters. Weinberg's argument is that the channels which build companies are channels that take months, sometimes years, to develop. Search engine optimization that ranks for valuable terms takes a year and a half of compounding work. A speaking circuit takes a year to build a reputation in. A sales motion takes quarters to refine. A content engine that consistently ranks takes hundreds of pieces of content. A community takes time to form a culture. If you wait until you have a finished product to start any of these, you will arrive at your launch with a product and no distribution. You will then panic. You will spend 3 months trying every channel at once. You will burn cash on whichever channel can be turned on most quickly, which is almost always paid acquisition. You will conclude incorrectly that paid is the only thing that works for your business, and you will have proved nothing except that you started too late. The 50% rule is the book's most important practical claim. It is also the claim that operators most consistently fail to implement. There is a specific reason for this failure, and it is a reason the book identifies but does not dwell on. Founders find product work intrinsically rewarding. Building a thing is satisfying. The feedback loop is fast. You write code, you see the screen change. You design a feature, you watch a user click on it. Traction work is the opposite. The feedback loop is slow. You publish a blog post and nothing happens for 6 months. You attend a conference and your 3 best leads close 11 months later. You send 300 cold emails and 7 of them turn into customers, over a quarter. The asymmetry of feedback is the reason founders underinvest in distribution, not because they think it is unimportant, because the rewards are too delayed for the brain to weight correctly. The 50% rule is a structural correction for that asymmetry. Treat it as the most important chapter of the book, all of which raises the question this video's title implies. The book is almost 12 years old. The world it described is not the world we live in. Which of the 19 channels still work, and which have collapsed under the weight of what changed between 2014 and now? The honest answer is that the inventory needs serious revision. Some channels have changed beyond recognition. Some have become harder by an order of magnitude. A few have effectively disappeared. Search engine optimization, in the form Weinberg described, is being slowly disassembled by artificial intelligence answer engines. Google's AI overviews now resolve a substantial portion of the queries that used to send clicks to ranking pages. ChatGPT, Perplexity, and Claude function as alternative search interfaces for an increasing share of high-intent queries. The mechanics of ranking have not vanished, but the value of a top 3 organic result is no longer what it was when the book was written. Social and display advertising has changed in a different way. In 2014, the work of paid acquisition was choosing audiences, building targeting layers, and optimizing bids. In 2026, on platforms like Meta and Google, the targeting work has been almost entirely automated. The platforms decide who to show the ad to. The operator's job has shifted almost entirely to creative. Viral marketing meant something specific in 2014. It meant referral loops of the kind Dropbox and PayPal used to grow. In 2026, viral marketing usually means algorithmic distribution on short-form video platforms, which operates on completely different mechanics. You do not engineer the loop. You produce the creative and the algorithm decides. Targeting blogs as a discrete channel has largely been absorbed into newer formats. The blogs of 2014 have been replaced by Substack networks, Discord communities, niche subreddits, and creator-led publications. The activity still happens. The container is different. Trade shows declined sharply during the pandemic and have only partially recovered. Affiliate programs have been absorbed into the creator economy. Business development, surprisingly, is more or less what it was. Partnerships are still negotiated by humans over months. And then there are the channels the book does not contain at all, because they did not yet exist as discrete disciplines. Influencer and creator partnerships at modern scale. Podcast advertising as a serious acquisition channel. Product-led growth, which emerged as a coherent methodology only after 2015. Community-led growth, which is a different animal from what the book called community building. Optimization for AI answer engines, which is now a discipline with its own consultants. If you sat down to write the 19 channels in 2026, the list would not be the same list. Some channels would be combined. Some would be deleted. Several new ones would be added. But notice what does not need updating. The Bullseye Framework still works. The 50% rule still works. The argument that founders are biased about which channels will work for them still works. The architecture of the book is intact. Only the inventory needs editing. Which brings us back to the thesis. Traction is not a book about 19 channels. The channels are scaffolding. What the book is actually teaching, and what most readers leave on the page, is a worldview about how founders' minds work and how that wiring leads them astray. The worldview goes something like this. Founders, especially technical founders, identify primarily as builders. They got into this work because they like making things. Their professional identity, their friendships, their sense of self, all of it is rooted in the act of building. When they think about how to grow their company, they instinctively reach for channels that feel like building. Content marketing feels like writing, which feels like building. Engineering as marketing feels like coding, which feels like building. Search engine optimization, in its purest form, feels like a craft, which feels like building. The channels they reach away from are the ones that feel like the opposite of building. Direct sales feels like asking. Speaking engagements feel like performing. Business development feels like negotiating. Cold outreach feels like interrupting. Paid advertising, with its bidding and its creative variance and its split testing, feels like a different kind of work than the work that brought them here in the first place. Most founders, asked which of the 19 channels they intend to test, will produce a shortlist that consists almost entirely of channels that feel like building. They will call this shortlist strategic. They will offer reasons for the channels they have excluded. The reasons will sound rational. The reasons will be, almost always, post hoc rationalizations of an aesthetic preference. This is the founder bias that Traction is built to disrupt. The book's 19 channels are not a list of marketing tactics. They are a list of 19 identities a founder might have to temporarily inhabit in order to grow a company. Some of those identities are uncomfortable. Some of them feel beneath the founder, or above the founder, or to one side of who the founder thinks they are. The book's quiet argument is that the channel which works for your company is, more often than you would expect, the channel that asks you to become someone you do not yet want to be. In 2026, this bias has become more dangerous, not less. The collapse of certain channels, especially organic search, has narrowed the field of options that feel like building. The channels that still produce reliable growth are increasingly the channels founders resist most. Sales, paid acquisition with serious creative investment, partnerships, which require months of relationship work, community, which requires showing up consistently in places that are not your product. The founders who win in this environment are not the ones with the most clever growth tactics. They are the founders who can see clearly which channels they are dismissing for emotional reasons, and who can override that dismissal long enough to run a real test. This is what the book is actually teaching. The channels matter less than the discipline of considering them. The framework matters less than the bias it corrects. The 50% rule matters less than the recognition that you will never, on instinct, allocate your time correctly between building and distributing what you build. Read this way, Traction is not a marketing book at all. It is a book about self-knowledge for builders. And like most books about self-knowledge, its lessons are easier to nod at than to apply, which leaves the question of what to do with all of this. If the book is about bias, and if the channels have shifted, what does a founder do on Monday morning that they would not have done otherwise? A few things. The first is to build your own 2026 channel inventory instead of using the original 19. Sit down and list the channels that actually exist now. Search, both traditional and AI mediated. Paid social, with its new creative-first reality. Content, in the formats that get distributed today, which includes short-form video and podcasts and not just blog posts. Direct sales. Outbound, with modern email and LinkedIn deliverability constraints. Partnerships. Community-led growth. Product-led growth. Creator partnerships. Speaking and conferences. Public relations, which is alive but transformed. Your list might be 12. It might be 15. It will not be 19. And it will not be the original 19. The second is to apply the 50% rule from the day you start writing code, not from the day you launch. Half your hours, this week, go to distribution thinking. If you have not launched yet, that means starting the content engine now. Booking the early sales conversations now. Building the audience now. The channels that compound do so on timescales of 1 to 3 years. The founders who win are the ones who started those clocks early. The third is to run the bias test on yourself in writing. Take your new channel inventory and rate each channel from 1 to 10 on 2 dimensions: how likely it is to work for your business and how much you instinctively want to avoid it. Pay particular attention to channels where the want to avoid score is high. Those are the channels that need a small, real test, not a confident exclusion. The last is to run the Bullseye exercise quarterly, not once at launch. Channels degrade. Algorithms change. A channel that produced 2,000 qualified leads in the first quarter may produce 200 in the third. The discipline is not a single workshop. It is a habit, repeated, on the calendar, with the same seriousness you would give to closing the books at quarter end. These are not 5 clever tactics. They are 4 small acts of structure, designed to push back against the most reliable error founders make. The book has been telling readers this for 12 years. Most readers, including many who recommend it, have heard the chapter list and missed the argument. If this is your kind of analysis, the subscribe button is below, and it helps the channel more than the algorithm would have you believe. Next Tuesday, the bookshelf turns to the book that shaped the world Traction arrived into. Eric Ries's The Lean Startup, and the specific places its logic breaks down in an era where artificial intelligence has collapsed the cost of building a minimum viable product to nearly zero. When anyone can ship a prototype in a weekend, the build, measure, learn loop stops working the way Ries described it. What replaces it is the subject of next week's video. The bookshelf is open. See you Tuesday.